SOT D West, Burrow Team. Coming at you from NTC, Off the Radar.
This is Off the Radar. I'm Captain Weston Rich, an observer coach trainer for the Green Berets at the National Training Center. In last episode, we touched on Civil Affairs' unique role in Army Special Operation Forces during large-scale combat operations. If you haven't heard that episode, please go back and give it a listen. This episode will highlight some of the differences between SOF CA and conventional CA.
There are fairly clear delineations, not necessarily super clear, between conventional civil affairs and soft civil affairs. And I'm not bashing any aspect of that. The train-ups are very different. SOF CA has a lot more of training time, going over a lot of other facets of being valuable to a special operations environment that some of the conventional BUBBAs don't necessarily get the opportunity to do.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that they all are or anything like that, but that is kind of a standard. That being said, they have a really critical role to play. The Directive 2000.13, I'm trying to remember it, I might be misquoting, but it directs all commanders to do civil affairs. Mm-hmm. And that's across the board. That's not soft, that's not conventional, that's across the board. You will do civil affairs in your environment. And that's the, not knee-jerk, but recognized response to our inadequate regard to the civil environment in Afghanistan and Iraq. So they're on ground longer than we are. We have 6-month rotations. Yeah. Right? The in and out of country. And you might have the benefit of people who are repeat members to deploy to said country, but that's not remotely guaranteed. Yeah. The Reserve CA guys and gals, they're likely to be on ground longer. But they're hamstrung in some of the ways that they can support soft objectives. So, USASOC Authority 525-38 is our civil military engagement directive, right? Mm-hmm. They don't. I guess. Sorry, it is, but they don't necessarily fall under that or have the rights to enact the same thing. The difference between like CMCs and CATs. Yeah. We work really extensively through unified action partners to shape conditions from the indigenous population to enhance our commanders' objectives in the region. I'm not saying that the conventional folks don't do that, because they do, but they don't have the same directive, rights, permissions, and authorities that we do to get after that. So
they're not going to trust the staff sergeant to do the same thing.
Exactly, and like some of it, and that's not necessarily right, but that is the way of the world. Yeah. And NTC, I can't speak to JRTC's purview of it because I wasn't exposed to it when I was there, but we have a wealth of conventional civil affairs here, and they more than we do. We have, how many soft civil affairs guys are here? It's three of us. Yeah. It's not a big package. Change that phrasing. Yeah. Phrasing. But the conventional BUBBAs, they are on the same rotations that we are, but they're working after the fact. So, which I think that we might be doing a disservice to some of the soft CA folks on not going over transition planning.
Well, in a rotation, is soft CA and conventional CA, do they have touch points at all?
It depends on the teams. Is there crosstalk in the scenario? Not really, no. That we're trying to develop it, but there's different logistical nuances behind that between different role player contracts and things like that, that they don't speak to each other necessarily. So that's different circus, different monkeys to deal with.
Okay.
But the reserve, the conventional CA folks do have to do transitional governance pieces with a lot of the rotations. And the SOF CA guys, they've already gone home, back to their home station.
Yeah.
By the time that happens. And because of that, I think that the SOF CA folks, it's a easy answer for us to be like, well, yeah, that's not my job. That's the conventional guy's job. They can handle it. You're like, cool. It's not your job until it fucking is. Until it is.
Yeah.
Sorry. So IDPs, actually, that's a great segue into that. IDPs are
internally displaced
internally
persons?
displaced persons. Yes. Yeah. IDPs are pretty much an inevitability of almost every conflict, particularly a large-scale combat, operation combat, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is easy, and you hear a lot of teams, SOF CA teams, do that, where they pass it off. Like, that's not my responsibility. It is. It is your responsibility when it's in your backyard. If you don't have the conventional force there, ready to enact and help deal with the IDP situation, cool. What if they're in the town that you're in with your AOB? Like, let me call the reserve CA guys. They can come handle it. You're like, that's wildly the wrong answer. And people do that because it's an easy button, but I think it actually stems from a lack of understanding on how to deal with it.
Okay.
So people put the easy button due to ignorance rather than wanting to look inadequate.
And IDPs are something that are tested here.
It's
something that you will see while you're at a combat training center.
You're absolutely right, and it's because we simulate real life battlefields. And guess what? You're going to have IDPs on real life battlefields. You're going to have civilians on real life battlefields, and you need to be prepared to deal with that. The conventional CA guys and gals are potentially more versed in that than the soft CA ones, because we don't recognize it as a priority yet. And I think all the cogs are turning towards changing that narrative. I do believe that through a lot of heavy command emphasis to that point. Like, cool, well, you need to be able to do this. And that's being taken back home at the respective home stations and put into training venues. But at least what I grew up in the course, it was not an emphasis that I was trained on. And then you only realize it needs to be focused on once you're in the midst of having to. It is not your responsibility until it is.
Yeah. So are these like the human domain, human dimension, information environment, stuff like that? Is that things that you're capable as a CA team to train on at home station, or you actually have to go partake in a larger exercise or go on an operational?
You can do smatterings of it. As a team, you will be better suited and receive better training at the CTCs.
Okay.
On how to deal with those kind of situations because of the manpower it takes to simulate it. Like, I can do an RMT with real governmental structure stateside. Great. And there are a lot of problems that we can replicate, or at least see the parallels that we're going to deal with downrange. You can absolutely do that. But to actually have to develop a network, deal with adverse personalities, try to coerce or convince people to ascribe to Western influences, that takes people to pretend to act in the human domain. And I'm not going to go to the team next to me that I work with every day and see their reconnaissance and be like, okay, today you're an angry shopkeep, right? And there's no training value in that. But the CTCs have put a lot of effort into providing very versed role players that make it to where the situation and scenario is more reminiscent of real life than anything you're really probably going to get at your home station, your home battalions.
Yeah, I would say that probably is the same across the board, whatever your MOS or military occupation specialty is. We talked a lot about CA and SF integration, and we briefly touched on CA PSYOP. What's the overlap in lines of effort between CA and PSYOP, if there is any? And then, like, what do you recommend on tackling that problem?
I think all of it's influencing operations. PSYOP, that's their moniker. That is what they do for good or ill, for whatever objective they need to enact. I have a ton of faith and a ton of respect for what PSYOP does. I've had the benefit of being very close knit with my PSYOP counterpart on my last deployment as a team leader, and here as well, I've gotten to see all the tangible effects that they can do, both for good or for ill, because we have red PSYOP as well that you have to contend with here.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of thinking of when we were talking about the IDPs.
Oh yeah,
red
huge.
PSYOP creating a problem.
How do you counter a message?
For the blue force?
Everything you do with civil affairs interacting with the human domain should be tied into psychological operations, honestly, U.S. Central Command web operations, because we yield a mechanism to analyze social media inputs that they scrub for reporting on a COP to an AOB commander, right? Mm-hmm. And it doesn't have to be PSYOP. They get slotted with that a lot, but typically it's an IO officer, or an information officer. Redundant. And we regard that on how to analyze, collate, and then provide information on both malign and coalition operations and how those are affecting the local environment. We have the benefit of seeing the on-ground truth.
Okay.
And potentially recognizing, or at least giving metrics back to the PSYOP individuals on what effects they're trying to achieve. So if they're saying that, hey, we've been putting out X, Y, and Z message for movement patterns. I want you to take these routes, this place, this whatever. And we disseminate that information, but then we're going out to other places down the line from whatever that route is, and we do see that traffic actually happening. We can then report back, like, hey, your efforts aren't in vain. They are providing the effect that you wanted, or they're not. and if they aren't, then you adjust fire, and you find out why. And you interact with the local populace to find out why the influencing initiatives that they're trying to enact are or aren't working. I think that there is so much overlap between PSYOP and CA that they should work in tandem very often. And I do see there's a lot of value with, obviously, the group alignment that CA is going to with the ODAs. I think the same way of that. I think there's so much benefit to that, to have our initiatives actually nested as opposed to being two separate tracks that occasionally like have touch points. I'll be looking forward to the day that PSYOP does the same thing. I think that's in the works, but I don't have the specifics on it. Well, I do know the CA ones are very much happening, underway.
Yeah. So I feel like there's an Office Space pun in there about you as civil affairs interacting with the populace, because the PSYOPers just aren't people.
There's definitely an Office Space joke to that, because that's right. Yeah, you guys give us the message, we'll figure out a way to deliver it.
I talk to the customers. The engineers can't do it.
Yeah, that's why there's at movie theaters, there's a reason that there is concessions and the
ticket people and
ticket folks, and then there's the ushers. The ushers aren't intended to talk to folks, and they definitely. I worked in a movie theater. That's why I'm saying that.
You were an usher.
Yeah, right. I was definitely a concession.
Civil affairs.
And then I went civil affairs. They chose wrong, man. They psychologically profiled me incorrectly. But no, you're right. There's different skill sets that each individual was selected for.
Yeah.
And that's why PSYOP goes to a selection. That's why CA goes to a selection.
Yeah.
That's why Green Berets, go to a selection. You've been identified as having these skill sets, these personality traits, these aspects of your personality and character that suit you better for whatever role you're gonna fill.
Yeah.
And I like to think that I'm a people person.
I think so.
I appreciate it. I enjoy talking to folks, but if I was a little bit more awkward, maybe I'd be more comfortable making messages for other people to enact on my behalf.
I don't know. PsyOpers aren't that awkward.
Not
At
all
least
of them.
some of them. We love you, Eric.
Yeah, I love you, Eric.
All right, difficult question now.
Yep, let's do it.
There might not be a doctrinal answer for this.
That's okay. I haven't used doctrine that much today.
We only use doctrine here at the
Oh, yeah, you're
National
right. We
Training
only
Center,
use doctrine always.
And that's how we critique and provide feedback to our rotational training units. Grant, what's what's CA's role in large scale conflict? I know we've been kind of dancing around, and maybe it's an ethereal thing because there's no written specific answer. But like, can you sum up in 10 words? No, I'm just kidding. Can you sum it up in just simple language?
Really, I've mentioned it a couple times, but working, I know that's the narrative, is working by, with, and through unified action partners to shape conditions and influence the indigenous populations and institutions to support commanders' objectives within the operational environment.
That sounded like right out of a field manual, and it was beautiful. But I mean, that's great. So you guys work with the populace to get after commanders' initiatives, whatever they are, various bosses across the board, representing different equities and different branches of the U.S. Army and the military and the government. And sometimes even, not that they would be your boss, but commercial or private sector.
Yeah.
You have to deal with their considerations as well. And try to do your best to leverage what they have to achieve your end state or the commander's end state. I think we covered a whole lot of stuff, and I definitely need to re-listen to this to
Oh yeah, dude,
more.
and we can touch on other stuff if we need to like rehash questions or anything. I'll come back and do that.
Yeah. This went from 1 to about 7 different episodes.
Yeah, I know. I think I went. I touched on a lot of different stuff, so I'm sorry for going off on whatever tangents I did.
No, you're fine. Oh yeah, my favorite question to ask.
Mm-hmm.
What's the biggest thing you learned from observing and supporting several ARSOF rotations?
Ooh. This has been a incredibly illuminating experience. I actually think as a broadening opportunity, this is something that should be sought after. I was livid when I was informed I'd be coming to NTC to be an OC. Mortified would actually be probably even more accurate. And I cannot express how much whiplash I've gotten from the hard 180 I've done in seeing the value of being here. The main thing I've seen is that we aren't sure of how we fill our roles as SOF in large-scale combat operations. And we need to do more of these, emphasize more of this type of training to prepare for the next conflict. Our doctrine needs to develop to reflect all the lessons, the amazing amount of lessons learned here across the board for all aspects of the SOF triad. Does that sound stupid?
No, did not sound stupid. Yeah, I think I've heard you say numerous times, and I've experienced it myself, the wonderful team that we have here on Burrow.
So amazing.
And it is something that is good for all our SOF officers and NCOs to think about as a job opportunity. You said you wanted to say something.
You asked for my thoughts of what I've learned here. That's the overarching one for career grant. Like, this is what I've recognized for future of SOF's role in the military, sure. What I've seen, again, tangibly, and it's been such a beautiful, wonderful experience. I didn't know that I'd be a part of a team that felt like I was a team leader again, and where I actually feel like I'm in a close-knit group of individuals who genuinely care for one another. The reason I want to say that I've learned from that is that it is not only possible, it is effective. How we have our borough team set up right now is going to look very reminiscent of what the group alignment's going to shape out to be, with PSYOP and civil affairs falling into their respective groups.
Yeah, that'd be great.
We have non-compartmentalized teams.
Yeah.
We don't delineate our roles and responsibilities more than we have to. We recognize what things that each individual team or competency needs to emphasize during training and outside of training. But we also recognize the merits of working together to accomplish all of those across the board, and no one shies away from stepping out of their comfort zone to learn more about the other facets within their organization. I have learned a lot about how ODAs work through exposure to wonderful fucking individuals like yourself.
Well, thank you.
And the other team leaders here. As I've stated, I had the benefit of having a good working relationship with PSYOP prior to coming here, and it's only been magnified from being here.
Yeah.
And recognizing what value they bring to a fight pre, during, and post-conflict. I think that that's probably the best thing I've learned, is that a lot of people are trepidatious about the group alignment as it's coming up, saying, "Oh, we're going to lose our identity. We're not sure how we're going to fill in." And you're right. Yeah, you are going to lose your identity as a whole because you're creating a new one. And that's not a bad thing. Change is scary, and that's where people get worried. But you're evolving into something more grandiose, more effective, and better equipped to fight the coming fights that our nation will. And I think that the amazing example that Borough Team has provided to me has given me a lot of faith and confidence that this can and will be successful in the future.
Yeah.
All of any trepidation that I had towards the synchronization across the board is gone, because I know that it can work, because I'm seeing it firsthand.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Like, that's a perspective I've never thought about. I hope that the group alignment for CA goes like that, and it just brings us into tighter tribes as ARSOF, and hopefully we can figure out some stuff with the ARSOF triad with space and cyberspace, and enhancing those capabilities at the group or operational level. Dialing back to NTC, I think you already have just talked about how this is a unique opportunity for civil affairs. It's something you can't do. You can't really replicate it at home station or outside of home station. I mean, you get a lot of this when you do an operational mission. However, those only come up so often. You don't always get the same experience. So this is something wonderful that you can should vie for, to come out here and train. Yes, it's going to be difficult. Sometimes it will be very austere. The civil affairs teams typically are with the AOB, and the AOBs are usually out in the environment. However, they do have some creature comforts that the SF teams themselves don't have, because doctrinally, why would a CAT team, at least currently, be forward of the line of operation, where they can provide the most value in that brigade, division, rear supporting, and up to the FLOT, with maybe some exceptions where they could go forward to the FLOT. You also touched on multi-domain environment that exists here. We enable civil affairs, psychological operations, special operations, and the whole gambit to do multi-domain operations, and do that against a huge adversary in a large large-scale combat operational environment. With that, do you have any closing comments?
I've said the main pieces that I wanted to say. I think that's a good summation. I'm grateful that you had me come on the podcast to
thank you
talk
for coming.
about civil affairs' role in here. And I think that things like this are the things that bridges the gap and allows a greater understanding across the board.
Yeah,
which is something I think that we've missed in the past.
I would say that my knowledge of civil affairs and psychological operations has expanded as a member of Borough Team. It still is nowhere near what yours is.
I don't know about that.
And this conversation has definitely highlighted some gaps of my knowledge. I think it's definitely worthwhile to sit down with some more civil affairs practitioners and get their input and spread their knowledge across, whoever chooses to listen to this. Civil affairs episodes in the future, psychological operations episodes in the future, and maybe some other.
Also, you get buy-in by looking fucking jacked when you get to an AOB. Work out, go to the gym, eat protein.
Yeah, if you can outbench everyone else in the AOB, then you'll get respect as a civil affairs officer. All right, that's enough. Yeah, jaw jacking.
That's pretty funny.
Thank you for listening to Off the Radar, where ARSOF prepares for conflict.
You have been Off the Radar with Sandy West.